Right, I'm now going to try and print from the SD card, so I'm going down to that. Calibration G code, let's try that. Bed leveling failed, sensor triggered too high, waiting for reset. Don't know what that means. It's going to print a whistle, whatever that is. There's still a bit of muck left over from the other one. Yeah, I don't think it totally cleared out the nozzle last time, but it's printing. It's getting a bit messy there at the moment. I think this is the first bit. I might cancel this and just clear that bed off. See, there was just a bit of black still in the head, so it's worth starting again. I'm not quite sure how you set it to go back to home because I'm not using Octoprinters. So hopefully this works. No, that's not working. It could be the PLA filament I'm using. So I'm going to stop that, I'm going to pause everything and just going to clear it off again. I looked onto the Prusa community pages, and somebody recommended having a test print to do the Z-axis with, rather than the enclosed little file that comes with the Prusa one. I'll just show you the difference, because if we go into, you might not be able to see the screen, but this is just printing from the SD card. So this is the Prusa enclosed file, which you'll just print in a second. And whilst that is actually printing, you're allowed to go into, if you go into the live adjust, you may not be able to see it on the screen. You should be able to. I'm at 342. I found with this filament about 400 is better, and that's just on my printer. So I could actually, but the problem is, by the time you've actually got around to testing anything, it's finished setting itself up. So that's actually not, in this instance, too bad. However, there is a much better little program that someone had put up on the Prusa community page, which is a calibration print. So I'm going to just do that one instead, which prints out a square. There's a couple actually. There's one that prints out across the whole bed. It's a multiple set of squares, but the basic one is this one, and you can print different thicknesses and as you go along, but because it takes about 13-14 minutes to print the whole square, you can actually set different calibration points on it, on Z-axis calibration points. So, and you'll see, but you've got a lot longer to actually sort of work out what's going on. Now, as I say, I've got this set to, well, I've adjusted this set at 340. I found about 340, 400 currently seems to be about right on my printer. It did seem to vary when I first started setting it up, but I do think that's to do with another issue a lot of people have pointed out, is the probe gives slightly different readings when it's got a hot or a cold bed. So I've also put in some G-code, which again I saw on the forums. It's not running on this particular instance, but I've now got it in my slicer program, so it's consistent as the G-code at the beginning of all programs, which does a sort of a calibration, then lifts the head so you can clean it, rather the other way around. It'll lift up the head so you can clean off any muck on the nozzle. It'll then drop down, do a calibration, lift up again, heat up the bed, and then do the print. So it's not actually calibrating on a really hot bed, which seems to be a bit of an issue. It seems to be an issue with some of these printers, and I've seen it regularly mentioned in the forums, and it was meaning I wasn't getting any decent prints at all. So since I've got my head around how to work out the live adjusting of the Z, also, as I say, with the code, so when it tests it's not on a hot bed, plus I've always have used this in the past, but I'm using it, which is the 3D lac, and that really solves the problem because it's completely solved prints not sticking. So but I use that with my one harrow as well. So but this will now, I'll just leave this running, but this is actually printing just about right. I'm going to get to halfway and then slightly up the Z on it, and you'll see what I mean. So I'm just going to pause this for a few minutes. So just to show you a few of these prints I've done before, so you can just get an idea of the effect obviously the Z height does. It was very unclear in the manual what they meant by adjusting the Z height, because it works in minus, it is, for example, this is minus 0.342, so I wasn't sure what they meant by going, you know, one way or the other, but just to give you an idea, where that is stringing completely, as you can see it's just individual strands almost, that is roughly at 0. So once you do a full calibration of the whole system, it resets that Z to 0. So initially I'd calibrate the whole system, so it would do top and bottom stops and go through its 15-minute or 10-minute setup, and then it was printing like that, which was not very good. So when I finally worked out what they mean by, you then have to, what they mean by calibrating the Z, that is, as I say, 0. That, if you it's difficult to tell in the light, but this is about 350, so that's minus, it's minus 0.350. That is about minus, in there, about minus 0.450, and where it gets quite rough in the middle, that was minus 500, 0.500, and then the 640 there. So basically what's happening is the 600 range, the print head is nearer the bed, so the higher the number, the squashier it is. It's pushing down on the print, pushing down, squashing the PLA more, PLA in this case. So the lower, the 0 print number is very stringy because the head's quite high and it's just doing strands. And I've found with this, it's in the sort of the 350 to 550. It's around the 400 mark. It's set there at minus 350, so it's 350 400. It seems to be slightly varying. That was another one. That bleep is put in by the guy who wrote this program to tell you to change the print, readjust your print depth. I'm not bothering, I'm just showing you how it works. So in other words, what you do is halfway through you then change to a different Z height, but I was doing it continuously, doing like an inch at a time. But there's a lot of lifting going on in some of the heights and bubbling, and so it's definitely worth doing this sort of size print and really messing around with the Z height just to get your head around the vast difference it does make. So it's not a plug and play system, which maybe I shouldn't have expected it to be, but I sort of got the impression that with the new auto leveling thing, you just press the button and go, but you don't. You've still got to set it up. But once it's working, it's brilliant. So I'm not having a go at the machine at all, because I'm very fond of it. But equally, having said that, I'm surprised how good my one-hode Duplicator i3 printer was in comparison, because this was a ready assembled one. So this was £900 UK sterling, in that sort of region, 850, 900 quid I think it was. The one-hode Duplicator was under 300 quid, so it's a third of the price. This is very good, and but the one-hode is a third of the price and is very good, so make of that what you want, really. And I have printed, as I say, I was just printing these gears, and they work perfectly. I mean, it's really good. They fit absolutely perfectly. That's with the Prusa. But I also, at the beginning of the year, or last year I think it was, printed one of these vices with the one hoer, and it's got a bit better because I actually used this the whole time, and this printed immaculately as well. So this is a £300 printer and that's a £900 printer. So there's not that much difference between the two. Obviously with the one hoer you've got to manually set the bed height with the springs and everything, which is takes a while. But then with this you've got to set the Z level height, and once the one hoer was set, it seemed to last for several prints before I had to do anything again. And this I've had to change slightly when you change filament, which is a fair enough point. One other thing I thought I should just quickly mention, within the Prusa profile, if you click the custom bounding box and just set the Y coordinates to anything between like -3 to -5, I think this was a suggestion again on the Prusa forums and Octoprint, because the print head initially does a check outside the bounding box, and then Octoprint says there's an error, so that cured that problem. I think the rest of the axes, you got 250, 210, 207, they're available on the I don't think there's anything else of particular interest on there, so I thought I'd just mention that.